Think about what you did last Tuesday. Not the big things, the actual texture of the day, what you had for lunch, the specific conversation you had, the route you walked, the thoughts you had in the shower. You can't, can you? Last Tuesday is gone, and so is most of last month, and most of last year, and virtually all of the first 5 years of your life. Here's the number that stops people cold when they hear it. Psychologists estimate that the average person retains conscious memory of roughly 2% of their lived experience. 2%. The other 98%, the meals, the conversations, the drives, the afternoons, the ordinary Tuesday mornings, simply vanishes, as if it never happened. For most of the 20th century, scientists assumed this was a flaw, a limitation, a bug in the system. They were wrong. In 2012, a team of neuroscientists in Florida discovered something that completely reversed what we thought we understood about forgetting. They found that your brain doesn't lose memories accidentally. It deletes them on purpose. In 1885, a German psychologist named Hermann Ebbinghaus did something nobody had done before. He studied his own memory. For years, Ebbinghaus memorized lists of nonsense syllables, random combinations of letters with no meaning, and then tested himself at different intervals to see how much he retained. What he found became one of the most replicated findings in all of psychology. He called it the forgetting curve. Within 1 hour of learning something new, the average person has already lost 50% of it. By 24 hours, 70% is gone. By the end of a week, nearly 90% has vanished. The curve drops fast, then it levels out. The small amount that survives a week has a reasonable chance of surviving much longer. But the first 24 hours are catastrophic. And here's what makes this disturbing. Ebbinghaus wasn't studying meaningless information. He was studying the baseline rate at which the human brain discards experience. The implication is staggering. Every single day of your life, you wake up with the raw material of memory. Experiences, conversations, sensations, feelings. By the next morning, 70% of that day is already gone. By the end of the week, 90%. You are not experiencing your life and storing it. You are experiencing your life and immediately, relentlessly, discarding almost all of it. For over a century, the assumption was that this was failure, decay, the brain struggling to hold on to more than it could manage. Then in 2012, Paul Franklin and Sheena Jocelyn at the Hospital for Sick Children in Toronto found something that changed everything. Franklin and Jocelyn were studying memory in mice. Specifically, they were studying neurogenesis, the process by which the hippocampus, the brain's memory center, generates brand new neurons throughout life. For decades, scientists had assumed that new neurons were good for memory. More neurons, more storage, better recall. What Franklin and Jocelyn found was the opposite. When they artificially increased the rate of neurogenesis, flooding the hippocampus with new neurons, the mice forgot faster, significantly faster. Old memories were overwritten by the new neural growth, and when they suppressed neurogenesis, stopping the brain from generating new neurons, the mice remembered old memories with unusual clarity. New neurons were destroying memories, not preserving them. The brain wasn't failing to hold on to the past. It was actively clearing space for the present. Franklin published a follow-up study in 2019. He found the same mechanism in humans. The hippocampus generates approximately 700 new neurons every day. Every one of those new neurons integrates into existing memory circuits and gradually disrupts what was stored there. Your brain is not a recording device that runs out of tape. It's a system that is constantly, deliberately, overwriting itself. And here's the part that reframes everything. Frankland argued, this is not a bug. It's the most important feature your brain has. A brain that remembered everything would be paralyzed. Every decision would require sorting through a lifetime of equally weighted memories. Every new experience would be contaminated by the weight of every previous one. The brain forgets to stay functional. It discards the past so the present can be processed clearly. Forgetting isn't memory failing. Forgetting is memory working. But here's the question that nobody had properly answered. If your brain is actively deleting 98% of your experience, what does it keep? In 1993, psychologist Daniel Kahneman at Princeton ran a study that produced one of the most counterintuitive findings in the history of psychology. He had participants undergo a genuinely uncomfortable medical procedure, a colonoscopy, twice. The first time, the procedure ended at its peak of discomfort. The second time, the procedure was extended by several additional minutes, but those extra minutes were significantly less painful than the peak. The second procedure was objectively longer and involved more total discomfort. But when participants were asked which procedure they preferred and which they remembered as worse, they consistently said the first one was worse. The extra minutes of mild discomfort at the end of the second procedure had changed how the entire experience was remembered. More total pain, but a gentler ending, and the memory said it was better. Kahneman called this the peak-end rule. Your brain doesn't record your experiences. It samples them. It takes the single most intense moment, the peak, and the final moment, the end, and constructs a memory from those two data points. Everything in between is largely discarded. The duration of an experience is almost irrelevant to how you remember it. A 2-hour film that ends badly is remembered as a bad film. A 2-week vacation that ends with a missed flight and a lost bag is remembered as a stressful vacation. A difficult conversation that ends with resolution is remembered as a conversation that went well. Your brain is not recording your life. It is editing it. And what it keeps, the peak, the end, tells you something profound about what it's actually optimizing for. Not accuracy, not completeness, not the faithful preservation of what happened. It's keeping the moments that matter most for your survival and your decisions, the emotional high points, the final impression, the data that will most influence how you act in the future. Your memory is not a diary. It's a highlights reel assembled by an editor who is only interested in what happens next. In 2010, Harvard psychologist Daniel Gilbert published a study showing that humans spend nearly 50% of their waking hours thinking about something other than what they're currently doing. He called it mind wandering, and he found that it consistently made people less happy, regardless of what they were doing. But here's the connection nobody made at the time. If the peak-end rule is correct, if your brain samples the peak and the end of experiences and discards the rest, then the quality of your attention during ordinary moments doesn't just affect how you feel in those moments. It affects what gets kept. A meal eaten while scrolling through a phone has no peak, no emotional intensity, nothing worth sampling. It vanishes completely by morning. Not even its taste survives. The same meal eaten with full attention, noticing the flavor, the texture, the company, has a peak. Something to sample, something to keep. You can't remember everything. Your brain is not built to. But the 2% that survives is not random. It's the 2% that had your full attention. So why does your brain forget most of your life? Not because it's broken. Not because it's running out of space. Not because aging is degrading what was once a perfect system. Because remembering everything would make you worse at being alive, not better. Because the active deletion of the ordinary is what keeps you functional, present, and able to learn. Because your brain has been doing something for your entire life that no one ever told you. It's been editing, taking your lived experience, the full, unbroken stream of Tuesday mornings and forgotten conversations and ordinary afternoons, and distilling it into something smaller, sharper, and more useful. You haven't lost your life. Your brain chose what to keep. The question is whether you're giving it anything worth keeping.